we're going to give you a little breakdown firstly of what the webinar will be today. So firstly, I will give you a little bit of information about Shine and how people can contact us. And then our first speaker will be my lovely colleague, Anne-Marie Flanagan. Anne-Marie has worked with Shine as Midwest Regional Development Officer for over 20 years. She was the co-lead for Shine with Friends, a collaboration with Shine family members and the HSE in developing and providing evidence-based family recovery supports. And she's co-developed many of Shine's family recovery supports and programs. And Anne-Marie's going to talk us through the family recovery framework. And then our next speaker after Anne-Marie will be Marion Keaty, a very highly experienced Shine family peer facilitator. Marion was the first family member to be a trained facilitator of the Shine Peer Support Group and Shine Recovery and Family Education Programme. She's the co-founder of Friends and has also co-produced the Stress Management and Recovery Education Programme. She was heavily involved in bringing Shine recovery education and resources online during COVID-19. And Marion believes that family recovery is essential because it changes lives for the better. And our final speaker today will be Dr. Mally Coyne, clinical psychologist and best-selling author. Mally is the adjunct psychology lecturer at the University of Galway. She sits on the mental health advisory panel for A Lust for Life charity as the psychological lead for their mental health schools programme. And she works as a clinical supervisor for the innovative Silver Cloud digital mental health platform. And then to finish, after all the speakers, we will have a short Q&A session where we will look at some of the questions that you've been sending in during the webinar. So who are Shine? Well, Shine is an organisation that supports individuals with lived experience of mental health challenges and also provides support to family members and supporters. Shine supports people to enhance their recovery, change attitudes and behaviours, to live a life of hope and mutual respect. Shine also delivers a variety of programmes and services. Through our programmes, See Change and Headline, and our advocacy work, Shine works to break down the stigma associated with mental health and also educate media professionals around responsible representation of mental health. Shine's recovery support services for individuals with lived experience and for family members and supporters include our brief information and support, individual recovery planning and support, peer support groups, both in person and online, and co-produced recovery education and training. And here are Shine's contact details. We will share this information in the chat, and we will also share it at the end of the webinar. Please contact our Shine services if you would like, or if any questions or you'd like some information. I'm going to hand you over now to our first speaker, Anne-Marie Flanagan. So take it away there, Anne-Marie.
Thank you so much. Just going to share my screen now, everyone. Thanks, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today to speak about family recovery. This is central in respecting everybody who is impacted by mental health challenges. So Shine recognises that everyone is born with human rights and into a family, regardless of the status and characteristics, and that everyone has the right to be treated with fairness as rights holders, equal with dignity and autonomy. And we ensure that it extends to all family members and your recovery. And because of this, Shine has worked with family members to develop a clear and an agreed understanding of family recovery and why it's so important. And I want to just quickly thank the incredible, committed, extraordinary family members who work with Shine in co-creating our evidence-based recovery, our information and research, recovery education programs, practitioner training, peer supports, and policy. So why is family recovery so important? And all our research And the incredible families tell us feel overwhelmed, worried, stressed, resentful, like angry, even shame and grief and loss, neglect relationships with others, put things that are enjoyable and good on hold, and then want to fix the person's mental health challenges, which can result in that person feeling infantilized, monitored, blamed for family problems, and creating chaos and conflict. And many family members kind of feel hopeless at that stage, and at times lost, and may reject the idea that family recovery is even necessary by saying things like, but sure, if he was better, I'd be okay. And what do you mean that I need recovery? Sure, I'm not the one with mental health challenges. However, family members in recovery, when reflected on how often they overstepped and reinforced unhelpful family dynamics before family recovery came into their lives. And with family recovery, hope filled the individual and optimism. And initially, family members may find it hard to even comprehend how this is even possible. And Shine is delighted that family members continually report that their beliefs, thoughts, feelings, behaviours, relationships and quality of life significantly enhances when family recovery is offered and people are provided with the support to do so. What is family recovery? It's not dependent on the well-being or recovery of individuals with a mental health challenge at all. And family members can engage in your own recovery, even when your relative may not be ready or even interested. And what is family recovery? Well, it's unique and it's personal to an individual, and it's at one's own pace. It's not linear because life isn't like that. It's an understanding that challenges are part of life and within the family, and it's about managing stress in a healthy way. Recovery is about family recovery even. It's about communicating effectively with healthy boundaries and mutual respect. It's about respecting and accepting that while we all see things differently, we need the skills to provide support to ourselves with self-care, self-empathy, and self-compassion. And it's about taking responsibility for one's own needs. And we use the language carer often, but actually family recovery says it's about caring about family members who experience mental health challenges while respecting self and others in a place of autonomy, equality, rights, privacy, and empowerment. So there are many principles. By family members taking personal responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings, and actions, it's about getting support for self. Every human is equal regardless of circumstances, leads to empathy for others, which helps in reducing the negative feelings that build, and having hope and empowerment, and coming to an understanding that we all have, I suppose we're all autonomous and with rights and choices and have control over our own lives. And yeah, it takes time and it takes support. And what happens? People feel hope around one's own personal recovery, that it's possible, and managing life challenges through the development of really good coping skills. And we use the word empathy. What is that? It's about empathizing first with self and then with others through that understanding the one's emotional needs, personal responses to stress, and seeking such deserved support. And equality, that everyone is an equal. We all were born with human rights and that we have our civil rights. And as an organization, we support that understanding. And we do that for the personal and the collective. And autonomy, it's about self-directing one's own life based on values, interests, and choices. It's about each person's will and preference, the right to make choices. And mutual respect, and that's about respect for myself first and you as family members. That's the starting place with others. And it's about accepting that when you offer support, that another person has the right to say no thank you, and it's about making one's own choices. And that responsibility we talk about, it's others are not responsible for filling our own emotions and expectations and feelings and behaviours. And that's really, I think, a central tenet of family recovery, and that belief that if he or she did X, Y, and Z, but the first step is taking personal responsibility. And that hopefully leads to that sense of empowerment, gaining a greater control over one's own decisions, and saying things like, I have to take care of myself, and stepping back and availing of support. And in the words of family members, this is what families say: we separate our experiences from the person with mental health challenges. That's what recovery means to family members. It's about being hopeful for ourselves and our relatives, that I can value and respect my relatives' choices and decisions, even if I don't agree. It's about seeking my own support to engage in recovery, even if my relative does not. It's about understanding that we cannot love our relatives better. It's a communicating our own needs and getting the support that we need. Viewing our relatives as people who can recover without our direction and supervision. Communicate with our adult relatives with mental health issues as adults. We do not talk negatively about our relatives to others, and we respect their privacy. Family recovery is about enjoying moments and not waiting for the next crisis. It's about listening without jumping in with a solution. Being busy, getting on with my own life, and being proud of myself and my family. And it's lovely to hear families report that. So the many outcomes that we are excited to report from a mental health services point of view, when engaging in family recovery, it means that services are responding holistically and empathically, with the understanding that people are influenced by family dynamical cultural norms. And just understanding that, it's about supporting the family member in their own right, and understanding and having value in their expressed emotion, such as worry and anxiety, and just holding that for them. It's increased enhances that healthy communication for the individual who uses the services, for the family member when engaging with mental health services, and having that mutual respect and regard. And the central tenet is that the person with mental health challenges is more likely to engage in a proactive way around one's own recovery. And so for the person with self-experience, it's about supporting that individual in their own right, respecting and empathizing and fostering that within the family. Effective communications with healthy boundaries, and those clear boundaries. And for individuals, whether it's the family member or the person using services, that it's about support as a choice, that there's privacy in everyone's life, that there's choice and control, that's the will and preference, that everyone is autonomous and independent. And these are easy words to say, but family recovery make it meaningful. And for the family member, it's about supporting you in your own rights to work through your own emotional response and reactions, and understanding your own dynamic at play in the family. The part that works, maybe the part that gets in your way, and us supporting you in your journey of recovery. It's about empathy being fostered for yourself and your family, and for you having those effective communication and skills with those boundaries. And those boundaries are saying, actually, I have a right to not be involved, to step away and get on with my own life. And it's reducing and eliminating self-stigma and accepting the hope with optimism, and understanding that support is a choice and it has limitations, and that everybody benefits. And then from us as an organization, what do we want to say and make a promise? We promise that when you engage with Shine, that you will experience a non-judgmental space. It's strengths-based, it's solution-focused, and it's about you, the individual. And whether you meet a staff member in a one-to-one, or whether you meet us and peer facilitators, remember that you will experience where everybody respects that you are on a journey, and we will genuinely empathize. We will hold hope if you don't have any, but we fundamentally believe that each person can experience hope and recovery for yourself and your family member. And I suppose I want to finish by inviting you to reach out, to take that first step in your recovery journey. And Shine is here to support you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Anne-Marie. We really appreciate it, and the breakdown of what family recovery is. And our next speaker up today is Marion Keaty, and Marion's going to speak to us about her lived experience of family recovery. Take it away, Marion, off you go.
Thank you, Rachel. So hello, and I'm delighted to be here today to share with you a bit about my recovery. I'm in recovery a long time now, but it all began with taking a first step. And the first step I took for my own recovery was a phone call to Shine. Not that I realized at the time what it would lead to, or that I even needed recovery, but I just didn't know where to turn. I had tried with all of my being to help my family member, but I couldn't, and I felt a failure. I felt hopeless and helpless and very, very stressed. The focus was on my family member. Families just had to get on with it. So we struggled and we tried to cope, even though we didn't know how. And nobody gave us any direction on how to deal with the whole thing. The result was that even though I had the best of intentions and my heart was full of love, I was supporting my family member the wrong way, and he resented it. And relationships were at an all-time low, and the whole family was in crisis. So when I made that phone call, Shine directed me to a support group. While attending the support group, I was asked to attend a family recovery education course. I agreed with great enthusiasm. I thought, this is great. This is where I get the recipe to fix my family member. It didn't work out that way. Instead, the course opened my eyes to my need of my own recovery. To say that I battled against the whole idea of needing recovery myself is an understatement. It was through the amazing facilitator and my own self-reflection that I came to realize that yes, I was putting my life on hold, waiting for my family member to get better. And that also I needed to change. And the only one I could change was myself, my attitudes, my behavior, and my thinking. I learned so much on that course. Most importantly for me, effective communication. The who I'm communicating with, when it's happening, where it's happening, how it's happening, and why it's happening. And of course, the famous drama triangle and adult-to-adult communication. Through Shine's support and education programs, my self-recovery grew, and I'll share some of it with you, and I'll start with personal responsibility. So in my pre-recovery days, I worried and worried, and I blamed and I blamed. I lived a fear-based life. I couldn't sleep. I felt left down, and I felt very, very angry. I overreacted to everything. So in recovery, I needed to take personal responsibility for my own emotions, expectations, fears, and behaviors. I also had to allow others to take responsibility for their own lives. It meant knowing what is and is not my business. It meant standing back. I realized it was my own expectations that had left me down and not anybody else. So I stopped the blame game. For the best part, managed my anger through exercise and stress management education, and by degrees, I came from a fear-based life to a hopeful one. I work on my recovery on a daily basis, and personal responsibility is a huge part of this. So from personal responsibility, I will go to mutual respect. So for me, I found my recovery long before my family member found his. And I have to admit, it was hard to stand back and see him choosing not to accept help. But through my own recovery and also through experience, I knew that I couldn't make him accept help. I had to respect his choices, even though I strongly disagreed with them. And I've learned this with other people too. I respect their choices, even if I don't agree with them. But I also expect others to accept my choices, whether they or not they agree with me. Thankfully, my family member is in recovery now, and I don't interfere in his recovery, and he doesn't interfere in mine. We have a relationship of mutual respect. So I suppose for me, it's the acceptance of people and their choices as they are, and people accepting me as I am. So next, I'll share with you about equality and what it means to me. So when I was trying to manage my family member's life, he didn't want my support. He resented it. He found it intrusive because it was the wrong support. Since I found my own recovery and know how to stand back and give him space, we have a much better relationship of respect and equality. Now he is far more open to support from me. And also, I'm far more open to support from him. We support each other, and to me, that is equality. So I also needed to have empathy in my life. And pre-recovery, I had sympathy for myself. I was immersed in the victim role, feeling a failure, plenty of sympathy, but no empathy, either for myself or for others. What I now feel is not sympathy, but empathy with myself, knowing I'm human and don't have a magic wand to fix everything for everybody. I'm trying to live my best life, dealing with my challenges and getting educated around my recovery, focusing on myself and my recovery to the best of my ability on a day-to-day basis. I accept that I'm fallible. We all make mistakes, and I can learn from my mistakes. I always thought that I had empathy for others, but not until I got educated through the family recovery education course did I realize that I lacked badly in that department. I was too busy trying to manage and fix to pay attention to how bad my family member was feeling, how anxious he was feeling. I never saw further than the fixing. As soon as I became aware of this, I was able to find empathy for him. It made such a difference to both of us. My family member didn't need sympathy from me. He needed empathy and understanding. So a really important part of my recovery is self-care. It came as very natural to me to care for others, their wants and needs, and to worry about them all the time. Not so much caring for myself and putting my needs first, though. So through my recovery, I realized that I'm responsible for my own happiness. And my happiness is not the responsibility of others. And my happiness is not dependent on other people. I realized that if I took some of the time, the energy, and the focus that I was spending on others and used it on my own self-care, my time would be better spent. Of course, then I had to have the courage and the determination to see it through. It didn't happen overnight. It was small steps. I found it very, very difficult to change my way of thinking. The concept of putting myself first and minding my own business was alien to me. It took a long time and a lot of fear, feel and do it anyway stuff, and acceptance of my own powerlessness over others to let me see that the sky didn't fall down when I focused on myself and my own well-being. So when I have a need, I ask for help because people can't read my mind. I now stand back and allow others to make their own decisions, even if I don't agree with them. I accept that I'm human. And while I've empathy for others, I have empathy for myself too, and I give myself a break. When I'm hungry, I make time to eat. And when I'm tired, I rest. I try to keep myself in today. I can't change the past or know what the future brings. I try to think before responding to a situation. It's important for me to find time for myself and relax and do things I enjoy. And I ask, what do I want for myself and what brings me joy? I find that while I'm focusing on myself and concentrating on my own recovery, I leave room for others to manage their own lives. Next, I'll share about boundaries, how important they are to me, and how I implemented them. So as I grew in my recovery, I realized how necessary my boundaries are to me. It's important that I know my own limits and take care of myself. It's not about other people and trying to change them. It's about me. The focus is on me. Pre-recovery, I had little or no boundaries. It was all yes, 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 and I ran myself ragged, and it became a habit. And it escalated over the years, and I became more and more resentful. So I started working on my boundaries, and I recognized that the hardest word for me to say was no. I found it difficult, but very slowly, I introduced some boundaries into my life. I had to be clear about my intentions to everyone, and I had to stick to my guns. Not everyone was happy, but I didn't expect them to be. I also used New Year's resolutions to implement boundaries, and I found that very effective. So I now keep a constant eye on my boundaries, and I implement them at the start so that I don't fall into the role of people expecting more than I can or want to give, and I don't have to backtrack afterwards. Don't get me wrong, I still support others, but it's a support that I'm comfortable with, and I accept and I enjoy the other support of me, and if I have a need, I make it known. I also have to bear in mind that other people have their boundaries too. They have just as much right to them as I have to mine. So respecting my own and others' boundaries saves me a lot of grief. So I'll share with you last, but very importantly, on my hopes. I have hope for myself that I can stay well and live my best life, enjoying the things that I love with the people I love, and to the best of my ability, living in the present, realizing that my best hopes and dreams have just as much chance of happening as my worst fears ever had. I have the same hope for my family, and that whatever changes we might meet along the way, we will have the coping skills and the resilience to deal with them. So my understanding of recovery is a process that gives me a good quality of life. For me, it is an awakening, a new attitude to myself and others. It transforms my life from unhelpful ways of living into more helpful ways of living, thinking, feeling, and behaving. It gives me the freedom to enjoy my life. It has a ripple effect, the whole family benefits. So family recovery works because I am living proof of it. So thank you for listening.
Thanks so much for that, Marion. Always lovely to hear you speaking. Really appreciate it. And thanks for giving us your lived experience of what family recovery is and means to you. Now, next up, our speaker is going to be Dr. Molly Coyne. And Molly is going to talk to us about the importance of self-care for family members and supporters. So I'm going to hand you over now to Molly. Take it away, Molly.
Hi there. Thanks so much, everyone, for it's brilliant to be here. And I hope that you can see that okay. Can you? My slides there, I can't put them up on full screen for some reason, but can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see that?
Yep, that's grand, Molly.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about the importance of self-care. And I think this leads really well from what Anne-Marie has talked about, and Marion as well. In terms of the science, I suppose, behind self-care, why that's so important for family members. I just want to say I'm really delighted to be here and very grateful to have been asked to speak. So how do humans react to challenge and uncertainty? In general terms, you know, like in the last few years, things have been very difficult with the COVID pandemic, but generally speaking, I suppose I want to talk to you about how, you know, when humans are in a threatening situation, this is how our brain reacts. We might feel unsafe, insecure, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, angry. Who can I blame? Overthinking, what ifs. We might feel helpless and hopeless, alone, isolated. We might be toxically driven, which means driven to a point like we keep doing and not really looking after our needs, and we might burn out, and we feel this heightened sense of threat. So it's important to know that you already have resilience as a family member, and resilience is the ability to resist or bounce back from adversity and not break. And also, I thought it was important to just kind of acknowledge compassion fatigue. If you've heard of this term before, it's about the expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet. So obviously, I suppose that's acknowledging how the difficulty that you know, family members can experience in kind of carrying pain to an extent, or not even carrying. It's more like witnessing and kind of seeing another person that you love in a very difficult situation with their mental health. And sometimes family members can have difficulties with mental health as well. It's by no means a kind of an either-or situation. And I guess these are the 3 C's of family recovery. I didn't cause it. I can't control it. I can't cure it. But I can take care of myself by communicating my feelings, by making good choices and celebrating myself. And I think, Marion really talked from the heart in terms of what she has done in her life to help herself with that. And I suppose when I'm talking about self-care, I talk about that taking care of yourself doesn't mean me first. It means me too. I think what happens in life is we think it's one or the other. We think if you think maybe as a family member, if I start to look after my needs, that means I'm neglecting the other person's needs. And that's not the case at all. You can actually look after your needs and also be mindful of the other person's needs. I think Marion described it so well by saying, being supportive in a way that you're comfortable, that doesn't end up infringing on your own needs, because then otherwise you have an empty cup. And how good is having an empty cup? Every time something happens that you feel drains you, your cup is emptying. And then what do you have to give to yourself or to anybody else for that matter? So neglecting your needs actually ends up, no good for anybody, really, to be honest. This all comes from our biological selves, in that we have a tricky brain as human beings. Our minds, brains, and bodies have evolved over millions of years. Much of what goes on in our mind is not of our design and not our choosing. So, we have these painful emotions and negative self-talk. They've evolved to protect us, but they're difficult to manage. So people might be surprised to know we are designed for survival and not happiness. So I think that's really hard for people to understand sometimes, when it's obviously we do have a drive towards having joyful moments, but really our brain is more concerned with keeping us safe. So if our brain detects any sort of threat, it will overcompensate, because the most important need for a human being is to survive. And I think it's really important to kind of know that, because then you can kind of understand it from your perspective, but also from your family member. I use a lot of compassion focused therapy when I work with clients, and it's really like kind of a nice visual to see that every human being has a threat system, which is this red circle, where we have this better safe than sorry approach, which is responsible for what we would consider feelings like anxiety, anger, shame, those kinds of things. And then we also have a drive system, which is the blue circle, which helps us to get up in the morning, which is the reason you came to this talk today. It kind of keeps us wanting, pursuing, progressing forward. And then we have a soothing system, which is our green circle, which is all to do with feeling contented, feeling safe, connected with other people. It's what's kind of, it's about managing distress and promoting bonding. It, like oxytocin would be one of the main kind of hormones involved with it. It's like that feeling of being cradled by your mum when you're first born, and the feeling you get when you're closely connected with other people. Now, many clients that I have met would have really a big threat circle, you know, because obviously they feel under threat from whatever is going on in their lives. They might have a big drive circle because they're trying to kind of almost overcompensate by being very driven. Sometimes their drive could be quite low, for instance, if they're depressed, but their soothing system, very often the clients that I come in, and by the way, your soothing system as a family member could be very small, could be like very small, in that the soothing system is all about self-care and self-compassion. And if you're if you're kind of, you know, maybe neglecting or foregoing your own needs to look after somebody else, or if you're finding, you know, if you're having your own kind of difficulties, be it in situations that you're soothing, and also it can be to do with how you were brought up and your childhood. And sometimes when we don't have adequate models of soothing when we're growing up, we mightn't see our parents soothing, self-soothing, or we mightn't have felt soothed by our own parents. It can make it really hard to know how to mind ourselves. So I've asked clients before, what would be in your soothing circle, or can you tell me what you enjoy doing, or what fills you up, what fills your cup up? And I've heard people say to me, I don't know, I have no idea what fills my cup, you know. And I work with a lot of parents who find that really difficult, because they, you know, sometimes they forego their own needs for the needs of their children, for instance. So what can we do to feel centered? When our threat, drive, and soothing systems work well together, we feel centered, but we can develop the skills to turn threat off and soothing on. And how do we do that? Self-compassion is the key. We need to work on this green circle. If you're to think about it visually, it's the green circle. So by cultivating our soothing brain, the green circle, we increase our resilience and the potential to thrive and succeed. How do we do that? So Viktor Frankl, I love this quote by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So in other words, I'll give you an example. If you're asked to do something that you're not that comfortable with, say, or you feel like you're being, you know, kind of a need is coming upon you that you need to fulfill, but you're not comfortable with it. The stimulus is the person asking you to do something, and then the response is how you respond. There is a space in between the person asking you to do something, for instance, and you responding. Your automatic response might be, I'll do what they've asked me to do because they've asked me to do it, and they're saying they need me to do it. But actually, there is a space, and in that space is your power to choose your response, and in that lies your growth. So in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is, if you fill your cup and if you focus on your soothing brain, your self-compassion part of your life, you are much better able to choose your response. Marion in her talk is much better able to choose how she responds to what was going on at home for her, because she was investing in herself and in being self-compassionate. And self-compassion also involves things like putting down boundaries, doing things that you enjoy, fulfilling your own life. Those are things that are part of self-compassion. So in order to come back into your thinking brain and not respond from a place of threat, self-compassion is the key to that. And another thing is, so, I mean, for instance, with my children, if I have done something for myself, if I have filled my own cup, I'm much better able to respond in a calmer way to them, or to be more reasonable in how I respond. So I think there is a value in working on ourselves. Of course, I'm going to say that as a psychologist. There is a concept in the child psychology literature called shark music, which are the echoes of our childhood wounds. And sometimes we respond, as I said a few minutes ago, very kind of in a very instinctual way, when that's the way maybe our parents responded to us when we were younger. We might feel uncomfortable with minding our own needs because we haven't learned that. So and that is what I suppose is called shark music, which I won't go into too much explanation because I'm conscious of time, but I suppose we have to almost battle against our instinctual in ways of responding. And we can we can do that by looking after ourselves. But how do you do that? Sometimes people need, family and friends to talk to about that. They need the likes of, Shine, the great organization that Shine is there to support us. They need their own therapy and their own counseling and supports to actually be able to take a step back and go, oh, I wonder how I find myself in this situation where I find it difficult to look after my needs. So you can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself, and being kind to yourself. People who have self-compassion are happier, more optimistic, and less likely to be depressed or anxious. That's science. That's fact. It's not just, as I said, this is what I have found, like people talk about, self-care. It's very popularized in the media. It's all about like having a nice bath and a bit of chocolate cake. It's not. Self-care is scientifically like looking after your needs. And it's not just about eating cake and, having a salt bath. It's actually about, how do you maintain your boundaries? How do you kind of make sure that you're prioritizing your own needs? How do you recognize your own emotions? How am I feeling now? I wonder why I'm feeling this way. Is this something to do with a struggle that I've had? How when it's your stuff you need to deal with versus somebody else's, all of those things, to build kind of regular patterns in your life that fill your self-care needs. So the benefits of self-care, they improve your physical health, your mental health, your self-worth, inspire contentment, helps you treat others with kindness, helps to repair past traumas, increases your productivity, promotes work-life balance. The power of compassion is incredible. If you show yourself self-compassion and you start to practice this for yourself, and I'm also talking about talking to yourself with a kinder voice, because sometimes we can be quite self-critical, which again comes from our tricky brain. It'll have a ripple effect over everybody in your life. Self-care means giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. Sometimes I feel with my kids, I'm giving them what's left of me. And that's when I need to remind myself, Mally, in order to kind of be the parent you'd like to be in this situation. And I'm not comparing me being a parent to your situation, of course, but I'm trying to kind of, show you instances where what drains my energies in life, which would be that. So recognizing when we need self-care, physical signs, mental signs, emotional signs, social signs. And again, I will share all these slides with you. So you do not need to, I should have said that to you at the beginning. You don't need to be writing any of this stuff down. I will share my slides with you. Recognizing when we need self-care, this is a really good way of recognizing it when you're feeling like that. We are some of everything we have lived. The capacity for self-soothing is born out of hundreds and hundreds of instances of being soothed by someone else. So if this is an issue for you, you're finding this difficult, there could be a reason for it in your own life. And I'm not trying to kind of scratch at too many triggers today. I understand it's a webinar and, I'm just trying to give you a little bit of an idea, but I would talk to somebody if you feel like this is an issue, because we all just want to be seen and heard, no exceptions as human beings. And that's an absolute, like, for everybody in life, that's all we want. And in order to maintain your own daily well-being, sometimes I would look at this graphic, which is every day having a little bit of something that brings you pleasure, something that brings you a sense of achievement. It can be really small, and something that brings you a sense of closeness and connection. And that's why COVID was so hard for all of us, because we felt we couldn't connect with people the way we needed to. I will also be sending I'll be sending Shine, so the organizers of this event, my Lotus of Self-Care exercise that you can do. And I kind of look at self-care as being a combination of physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and social. And in that, you will be able to do an exercise where you can identify what you already do in these areas of self-care for yourself, and what you can feasibly maybe make one plan for each area. And actually that comes from the book that I wrote, Love In, Love Out, which the whole idea of my book was, and it was a compassionate approach to parenting your anxious child. The whole idea of my book was, unless we pour love into ourselves with reflection and kind of self-care, it's very difficult for us to have the love out. It's almost like a mantra: love in, love out. I actually even have a tattoo of a lotus on my arm. That's how strongly I feel about this idea of self-care. One of the basics that sometimes we forget is, before you act, these are a couple of ideas. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Many of us react in situations very quickly when we're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Worse yet, if you're hangry, where like the anger comes from the depth of your soul because you're actually hungry. So I think that's a really important kind of thing for you to be consider in your own life. Another one is about human connection. Somebody wrote, I think when the dust settles, we will realize how very little we need, how very much we actually have, and the true value of human connection. And I suppose the value of human connection is because humans are a deeply social species whose most joyful and sad moments come from the fulfilling or lack of belonging with close others. Our sense of joy, self-worth, and belonging develops in our early relationships, which over time progresses to the close bonds we form with others. One of the best ways to lower stress levels and relax your body is to spend time with really genuine and warm people, those you can cry with and those you can laugh with. In essence, those you can be fully you with. So think in your mind, and you don't need many of these people in your life, even if you have one or two that you really feel, and it doesn't have to be somebody incredibly close to you. Our acquaintances can mean an awful lot to us as well. The people that just make you feel more joyful, and I guess surrounding yourself and make you feel more like the special person that you are. Another thing is finding support. We can't do this alone. And this is what's so brilliant about this webinar today and Shine as an organization. It's about picking our tribes carefully. And it's also about befriending our inner critic. Oh, I should be doing this. And if I was a good spouse, if I was a good family member, then I would be, and I should be, and all that. I'm not asking you to get rid of the inner critic. The inner critic is actually there to keep you safe. But I want you to befriend that, to hear the voice and to kind of go, I wonder if I'm speaking to myself a bit harshly here. I wonder if perhaps I can turn the volume down on that and turn the volume on the kinder voice that says, it's okay. It's okay to look after your needs. It's okay, So ideas for self-care: balancing enjoyment, achievement, connection, making time for daily self-care, having work-life balance and boundaries, seeing how you can feel more connected, being a steward of your senses, maybe not scrolling for ages. Or I actually avoid the news sometimes when I'm, because it's have to be careful of what you take in every day in your life, finding ways to cope with stress, focusing on what you can control. What do I need right now? Dedicating me time and having a support network. And then just finally, in terms of self-compassion, And I'm actually going to do this for you in a brief 1 or 2 minute meditation to explain the concepts of mindfulness, which involves recognizing when you're feeling stressed or struggling without being judgmental about that. Self-kindness, being supportive and understanding towards yourself when you're having a hard time, rather than being harsh or self-critical. And connectedness. This is why we're here today, remembering that everyone makes mistakes, everyone experiences difficulties at times, and knowing that you're not alone. That's what's so wonderful about this, Shine working with families, is knowing you're not alone. It just helps to know you're like other people struggle as you struggle, and that's okay. I would encourage you to seek support if you need with your close family, friends. If you're not feeling too good yourself, a GP health check, a counselor, psychotherapist, helpful organizations like Shine, groups, looking on yourmentalhealth.ie. I work for the Silvercloud platform, which is a free online platform for people with anxiety and depression that you can get referred to from your GP. And I'm just going to close off now with a very, very brief meditation. I just want you to close your eyes if you can. This will only be a minute long. And I want you to breathe. So we're going to breathe in through the nose, pause, and breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose, pause, and breathe out through the mouth. So just keep on breathing as I speak to you. And if you were to bring up something in your life that causes you only a small bit of kind of uncomfortableness, not a big bit, but just something in your life at the moment that is just a little bit uncomfortable for you. And being present with the sensations as they arise in your body. Just bringing that to mind at the moment, but in a very safe way, because this is meant to be a safe exercise and something that you're okay with in this moment. And just kind of, the 3 elements of self-compassion are like this. So kind of saying to yourself, this is a moment of struggle in my life. This is a small thing or something that's causing me a little bit of discomfort that I'm not so comfortable with, and that's bringing me a couple of uncomfortable feelings, and just tuning in with that, sensing what it's like for someone to experience this feeling and acknowledging this is tough right now, but I'm not judging myself for this feeling of feeling tough, because this is the way it is and this is how it feels. And the second stage of the self-compassion break, which I will share with you after this talk, and I'll share with you a link, is that I'm not alone in my struggles at the moment. I'm not the first human being who has felt the struggle, even though my struggle is my own in this moment and it's unique to me at this moment. But I'm not alone in how I feel. Other human beings have felt the feelings that I feel right now in this moment. We all struggle in our lives. This is what it feels like to struggle in the way that I do right now. And now the final part of the exercise, and I know this is very brief, is putting a hand on your heart and saying, little breath, may I bring kindness to myself in this moment. It's okay that I struggle. This is a hard moment. It's okay that I'm struggling with it. I'm not alone in how I struggle with this. I'm not going to judge myself. And if I hear that voice, I'm going to turn the volume down on that voice. I'm going to listen to the kinder voice that says it's okay to struggle. It's okay. It's okay. This is a hard moment. And I'm going to bring kindness to myself. I might even give myself a hug. Look, nobody's watching you on this webinar. You might be watching me, but nobody's watching you. Give yourself a nice little hug, because hugging yourself is saying, I am worthy of love and respect, and of setting boundaries, and of looking after myself. And there's a science to this. It's not just that I'm, sometimes people think self-care is being lazy, self-care is being self-indulgent. It isn't. Make it about self-compassion. Just 1 or 2 more breaths in and out, and we're going to come out of this exercise. And, so 1 breath in and breathe out. Another breath in. And another breath out. And bringing myself back into the room, opening my eyes. And I hope that that was okay for you. And I really thank you so much. And I will be sending you my slides and also a couple of little exercises that I mentioned today. And thank you so much for having me.